Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast, the podcast for those that are curious about what's possible inside their four walls. Before we get into this episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors that make this all possible. Ready to modernize your operations? It's time to partner with Peak Technologies. As North America and Europe's largest system integrator, Peak delivers end-to-end digital supply chain and enterprise mobility solutions across warehousing, logistics, and manufacturing. With over 40 years of expertise, they design, deploy, and manage the technology that modernizes your facilities, driving measurable operational performance. As a premier Zebra Technologies partner, Peak combines deep AI DC expertise with industry-leading devices, machine vision, and automation to deliver scalable, future-ready solutions. Trust Peak Technologies to power your digital transformation and head to peaktech.com. That's peaktech.com. Are you looking to grow sales this year? Strategic Marketing Communications can help you do that. For more than a decade, Master Plans Communications, Marketing, and PR has been building awareness and creating demand for material handling companies. MPC offers strategic marketing and PR planning, media relations, video productions, photography, websites, digital marketing, social media, and more. Connect with MPC at masterplancommunications.com and on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast and are looking for more content around warehouse automation, then check out TGW Logistics' new podcast, The Automation Journey. TGW is a customer-first, holistic warehouse automation company, and they understand that every journey of exploring, implementing, and maintaining automation looks different. In their podcast, they touch on all different topics and questions you may be facing right now. Whether you're brand new to automation or a seasoned vet, find the automation journey today on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. As we all know, in most yard operations, technology isn't the problem. Execution is. The workforce turns over faster than processes can stabilize. Outsourced vendors manage tasks, not outcomes. Costs rise while service levels slip. Safety issues are a constant, and leadership still lacks a clear, consistent view of yard performance across the network. Yard management systems were supposed to bring control, but the truth is that software alone can't enforce process discipline, develop labor, or manage equipment day to day. That's why many enterprise shippers are shifting to YMX Logistics. YMX Logistics is a national third-party logistics provider focused exclusively on yard operations. YMX manages yards as an operating system, aligning people, processes, equipment, safety, sustainability, and technology into an integrated operation. So, if you are interested in learning how you can optimize your operations while improving sustainability and lowering your total operating costs, visit ymxlogistics.com/next. That's ymxlogistics.com/next. Thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get to the podcast.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Gina Chung, and she is the VP of Corporate Development at Locus Robotics. And we've had Locus Robotics on the podcast a number of times. We actually, our first episode ever was one of the founders, Bruce Welty, on the podcast. And they've obviously grown and done a ton of things since that first episode back in 2019. COVID-19, and they are rolling out a new solution as well, which we're going to hear about from Gina today. But we're also going to tap into a little bit of her background and her experience, because she spent a lot of time at DHL as well on the innovation side, and we're going to get kind of her view on what has been the evolution of technology just in the warehouse space in general, and how it's kind of all maybe converging here in what Locus is putting out into the world now in 2026 and beyond. So Gina, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, and happy belated Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy belated Thanksgiving as we're recording this. I guess what do they call today? Today is like Giving Tuesday, Travel Tuesday, I think is the one, right?
For the team at Locus, it's Travel Tuesday today.
Travel Tuesday. There you go. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. So you're with Locus Robotics, and you're the VP of Corporate Development over there. So for people that have not heard of Locus Robotics, or maybe are not so familiar, why don't you give us just a brief overview of what you all do?
Yeah, sure. So Locus Robotics, we're based in Boston. Global presence. We pride ourselves on being the leader in flexible warehouse automation. So we have a platform that's fully integrated that enables warehouse operators to leverage robots to do a whole host of different workflows, everything from picking to put away, transportation, sortation, and more. And we're currently live at over 350 sites and have 16,000 robots helping to fulfill orders every day.
Wow, 16,000. That's a lot of robots.
16,000.
Definitely. Yes. And you all recently just hit like 6 billion picks, I think, done through Locus Bots. Is that right?
Yeah, we just achieved our 6 billionth pick. And we're able to track which site, which time of the day, down to the second, and who picked it. So it's always an exciting day for us when we hit those milestones.
Wow, very, very interesting. And you mentioned here, we said we're recording this like just after the Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I mean, do you have any numbers of like what was picked over the peak there?
Not yet, because they're still crunching those numbers, but I will say it's our biggest peak season ever. I think we had almost 3,000 peak robots go out into the field just temporarily for a few weeks to help our customers. So wow. Massive project this year, but I've heard from the field that it's been very successful.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. And I've seen, over time and I guess history here, warehouse history, like the milestones that you all have hit. And it seems like the next billion just keeps coming like faster and faster every time. So really incredible to see kind of that growth and what you all are up to. So let's talk a little bit about kind of that history and evolution of the industry. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, you spent a lot of time at DHL too, as well, kind of on the I guess end user side in a way, the shipper side, and looking at innovation. So now with Locus as well, you kind of seen both sides of the table almost in a sense. So tell us a little bit about like, how do you view the market and how do you view the warehouse industry? I mean, over that time in your career to today, heading into 2026, I mean, what do you see in terms of the evolution of, robotics and technology in this space, and how would you kind of define that evolution and where we're at now?
So prior to Locus, I was with DHL for over 10 years, heading up innovation. So spent a lot of time in warehouses across 5 continents. I actually thought about it before this podcast, but spent a lot of time in warehouses around the world, and spent a lot of the 10 years evaluating new technologies, new warehouse automation technologies, and figuring out what works and what's scalable and delivers real benefits for the business. And what's changed, having been at DHL when we deployed our very first collaborative robot to today, where they have thousands and thousands of robots across their warehouses, is I think the perception of risk when it comes to warehouse automation has changed. If you rewind, even 7-10 years ago, a lot of operators were kind of not scared, but they saw automation, these new kind of new age robotics companies, as kind of risky, right? They're new vendors, new solutions. It's not proven. Haven't proven reliability out in the field. And it really was kind of a leap of faith at that point to invest in these automation solutions and then kind of see how it performs and then scale it out to other sites. And now, where we are today, you have, a handful of very proven solutions out in the industry. You have companies that, now have a reputable brand. They've proven their solution in hundreds of sites. They have a great portfolio of customers that they can reference back to. And I think the risk around automation has really, dropped significantly compared to where it was before, almost to the point that it really is table stakes now for any warehouse operator, that they need to be looking at automation, investing in automation. And there really are, a number of really good proven solutions on the market that they can choose from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great way to put it, that like the idea of the risk has come down a lot, because, there certainly obviously were companies that took the risk, I guess, in the beginning, which allowed us to get to this point. And, obviously, different approaches as well. And, Locus, I think, being one of the originals, right, offering a RAS type model. And you mentioned, kind of the surging up of bots for peak there, that you sent out the 3,000 additional bots, and that flexibility too, I think allows, people to be more receptive to trying this or getting automation and robotics into their space. So that's, taken some time to get to that point. So tell us, in the last year, 2 years, we've seen, kind of, I think, really rapid advancement in the technology. Certainly, spurred a lot by what we're seeing on the AI front and things of that nature. What do you think has happened kind of specifically in the last 1 to 2 years within the robotic space, warehouse robotic space, that is now kind of leading us and pushing us into, what this next wave of robotics is heading into 2026?
Yeah, another great question. I think, if you look at the last 2 years and, if you spend time reading the reports from the analysts or talking to integrators, some of the industry experts, our customers, buyers of automation, the number one shift is just the complete focus on flexible automation. I think it's really, as I mentioned, it's become table stakes. You want flexibility in your business because of all the uncertainty that's happened in, recent years, right? Take, COVID, take, the tariffs, inflation, you've got, wars happening in different regions. The level of uncertainty has never been higher. And I think one of the big lessons coming out of all of those different disruptions was the need for flexibility in your operations so that you can respond to changes in volume, changes in SKU profiles, all sorts of different dynamics that any operation faces, right? So we've seen this tremendous kind of switch over to flexible automation. You see it in the data that's coming out as well. Flexible automation is like a rocket ship taking off in the next years. And I think it's because operators have now fully, come to realize the value of flexibility in your operation in an uncertain world. I think in terms of technological advancements, obviously there's been a lot of investments in humanoids, and I know we'll get to that later, but sure. I think the next level will be how to make the solutions even more flexible. So how do you build a platform that has even more flexibility than we provide today, whether it's more configurations, more workflows, more integrations, new form factors that enable you to cover different use cases in the warehouse? And how do you offer that kind of ultimate kind of one-stop shop flexible experience for the operator?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that flexibility is such a key thing, right? To be able to do that. And especially like, you spent time DHL, right? 3PL. I mean, when you look at a 3PL, like specifically, which, runs a ton of the warehouse industry and a lot of what we see from a e-commerce perspective, as we're talking about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? That flexibility becomes such a key thing because, your client and product portfolio that you have today, 3 years from now may look totally different, right? Because your clients may shift, they may add new SKUs, they may go in different directions with their product mix and things of that nature. So having, investing in these types of solutions, right? You have to have that flexibility that you talked about. So tell us, I guess, a little bit about, this new solution or new robot, the Locus Array, that's coming out from you all. I mean, I saw that there was some buzz around it at ProMat earlier this year. A little secretive, was in kind of like a hidden booth, right, in the massive booth that you all always do at those shows. But I saw recently that I guess the first kind of deployment is rolling out with DHL, right? So what is this new bot? Like, what is it all about?
So very excited to share more about Locus Array. It's the third robotic form factor that we're adding to our platform. So we have Locus Origin, which is scaled across 350 sites. We have Locus Vector, which is our heavyweight robot for 600 pounds.
Sure.
And then we started development of Locus Array roughly around 3 years ago to really add to what we call full spectrum automation. So customers of Locus, they integrate to our platform, and now they can pick and mix between various kinds of robots to handle different workflows. So now you can, choose between, I want this portion of my volume, maybe it's all of my volume being handled by person to goods robots, or I want a portion or all of my volume being handled by a fully automated solution, which we call Locus Array. So Locus Array, how you can imagine it is it's a mobile robot with a robotic arm that's able to pick and consolidate orders in the aisle. It has 6 tote positions, so you can store 6 orders. You can split the totes and store dozens of orders, but essentially it's one robotic form factor that's going around picking and consolidating multiple orders on one single robot. And we call this robot to goods. So it's an evolution of what we do today, which is person to goods, but it's robot to goods. And all of that is seamlessly integrated under one platform, which we provide called Locus One.
Interesting. So the Locus Origin, right, as we know it, the kind of original Locus form factor, right, is very much a collaborative robot in the sense that it relies on the human to put items on the bot or take items from the bot. So this is fully automated. So the robot is doing the pick or the pull and putting it into the bins. It's very interesting. So I'm curious, like, what was the kind of catalyst to say, we also need a fully automated solution?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Ever feel like a consultant doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to operations? You need someone that knows what you're dealing with. That's the experience that today's sponsor, the Breckham Group, brings to the table. Built by operators and engineers, they help you bridge the gap between strategy and execution inside your distribution center. Learn more about how their proven framework called Precision Supply Chain Operations can bring faster performance, greater efficiency, and real ROI at breckhamgroup.com. That's BRECHAM group.com.
Yeah, I think if you talk to warehouse operators, there's always been this kind of holy grail discussion, like what if you had this kind of lights out warehouse that's operating 24/7, that's ultra, easy to operate. You just forget about it. You come into the warehouse in the morning and all the orders are consolidated and ready to be dispatched. And the technology just hasn't been ready the last years to make that happen. But we believe that now is the right time to bring that kind of holy grail idea to life. And to have a solution that is now capable of operating with almost no labor at all, 24/7 in an operation, it's really, I think, an exciting advancement for our customers. Now, some will value, the flexibility, ultra fast deployment, and will still opt for Origin. But I think for many of our customers, they're going to be very interested in, how they can fully automate their operations while also maintaining that flexibility that Locus is known for.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. And so from, I guess the bot obviously is a little different, right? I think, from what I've seen, it looks like Locus Array is a little bit taller, right? Is that correct? Yeah. And what about from like an infrastructure perspective? Because like the Locus Origin, right, is, essentially you can have normal shelves, normal racking and things like that the human is pulling from and placing on the bot. Does that change at all with Locus Array? Does it need special kind of storage or shelving to interact with? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's going to be a really straightforward deployment. So all you need for Locus Array is your standard racking,
Oh,
standard
okay.
totes. We're able to, handle the 600 by 400 and different heights, but we're able to kind of operate with standard infrastructure. So it's going to be very easy to deploy. And then in the kind of standard Locus fashion, we're going to be able to roll those robots out into the warehouse, turn it on, and it's going to be able to then start picking in the warehouse instead of it being, a month or year-long construction project that you see with other kinds of, fixed automation solutions.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And I think that's fantastic. Definitely. Right. Because I mean, like, as you said, sometimes you got to invest in all this other infrastructure to just support the robot. Right. And that's a huge undertaking. And I think going back to your points around flexibility, people want to bring in this stuff and get it going right away. Right. Like they show me results now. I'm sure you hear all the time. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think, yeah, you had mentioned ProMat earlier this year when we had Array being shown in kind of a secretive booth, but we were able to prove that we can set it up there very easily with standard racking, standard totes, the concrete floor at ProMat. If you've been there, it's not perfect.
sure,
We actually had to have Array drive over this like metal grate that was kind of elevated a bump over the floor, and it was able to handle that just fine. So we always design with flexibility first in mind. So it has to be ultra easy to deploy. We want customers to be able to deploy this in their existing warehouses. They don't have to refloor the facility. They don't have to, do any sort of special kind of infrastructure build. So we always have that in mind. It's kind of our ethos is, flexibility first, and how do you make it as easy as possible for the customer?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great. And I think that ease of use, not only for customer from like the installation standpoint, but then also from like the actual like on the floor workers interacting, with the stuff you've done every day is important too. So let's talk a little bit about, because you kind of teased it a little bit there, talking about the flexibility and humanoids and things like that. So a lot of, kind of this idea of fully automated or getting to a lights out state. There's a lot of discussion in the industry about utilizing humanoids to be able to do those types of things. And obviously there's a ton of discourse about the humanoid form factor and, that's best suited because the warehouse was built for a human, right? In a sense, but, I'm curious what you believe or what Locus sees in terms of, utilizing the form factor of the Locus Array to be a fully automated solution versus like what people are doing from a humanoid specific perspective.
Yeah, I think so. Locus Array, it's designed for the warehouse. It's special. It's purpose built for fulfillment automation, whereas, humanoids, they're a general purpose solution that's, designed to handle all sorts of different tasks across different industries. And I just think if you're trying to solve the problem, which is, how do you make fulfillment as efficient as possible, lowest cost per pick, and all of that good stuff, it's going to be special purpose solutions that win. Because, Array, as you mentioned, it's doubling the density. We're able to get to, 10 feet in the warehouse. You're able to have, the robot move very quickly because it's on wheels. We also have this ability to store multiple orders on the robot. So 6 totes that we can store on the robot itself so that you're not having, one robot that's capable of storing one order, moving around the warehouse, but you're being very efficient storing, 6 totes within the form factor. So a special purpose built Array to really nail the fulfillment problem. And I think humanoids, where they'll run into issues is if they're trying to go after that same use case, one, they're at 5 feet or 5.5 feet, whatever. So they're not really improving on the density story. They've got, 2 legs. Why do you need 2 legs in a warehouse if most of the floor is flat or the floor's flat and you want to be moving very quickly point to point? And then you have, the picking, our hands or 2 arms with two hands and, fingers and all of that. Is that the right form factor to also be solving the actual picking? Given the complexity of, different packaging and the ways that SKUs are presented in the warehouse, there's a lot of question marks that come to my mind when I think about humanoids for picking. There could be other use cases that, humanoids will be more suited for in the warehouse. But I do think that, special purpose solutions, purpose-built solutions will win the race.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. And I think those are really great points too. And I think, as you're saying, like, oh, the humanoid's only 5 feet, right? I mean, I think if we had like a 10-foot tall humanoid, that'd be pretty scary, I think, for
It'll be pretty
people
terrifying.
to be around. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be like
Can you
like a
imagine?
transformer almost, like Optimus Prime or something, right? Yeah, that would be very intimidating to walk into. So very interesting there. And I think, really interesting the approach there, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and obviously seeing kind of the evolution of Locus and getting to this point. So I'm curious, like, how does Locus view the warehouse of the future, right? Is it a mix of your different bots operating in there? Is it like all moving in the direction of Locus Array? What is the view there?
I looked at some data. There's like 130,000 warehouses in the world. There's like a ton of warehouses. And
Yeah.
I think, it's going to be different strokes for each warehouse, depending on the problem that they're solving, depending on which industry they're in. So you mentioned 3PLs earlier.
Hmm.
If you're a 3PL of 100 sites, and each of those 100 sites are tied to renewal contracts that last anything from, 3 to 5 years or less than 3 years, you don't want to be investing in a whole bunch of fixed automation solutions. You might not even want to be investing in any sort of automation that requires, high upfront cost, right? So for those, customers, they might be wanting to, use some more flexible solutions on the market that you can deploy and then, adapt as things change. And then you've got others that, have that, stability. They want to invest in, an ASRS because they know their volumes aren't going to change for the next 7 to 10 years. Great, that's going to be the right solution for you. But I think the majority of warehouses are going to fall into that in between that you described. It's going to be a mix. It's going to be this blend of both, where you're going to be able to use flexible, ultra flexible automation like Locus Origin for a portion of your volume. But then there's going to be this portion of your volume that you just feel really confident to fully automate, and you can just, forget about that, portion of your operations because the robots are picking and consolidating the orders automatically. And to have that flexibility to, decide, how the level of automation that you want for different kinds of SKU profiles or different, volumes, I think that's going to be incredibly interesting and a part of the future, what the future kind of warehouse will look like, rather than, every single warehouse is going to be fully automated and lights out. Like, I don't think that's going to apply to the majority of warehouses out there.
Yeah. I think it's very hard to get to, right? I mean, to your point, like, the product mix changes and these renewal contracts and all these different things. And, you said there's like 130 warehouses in the world. I think I saw a number that there's like 20,000 3PLs, right? So you can imagine just the variability that's encapsulated in that, which makes it really hard to get to that lights out type of thing, and all these, intricacies too that us as consumers we love to ask for, and these customization stuff makes it harder to get that fully automated. So very interesting there. And I guess let's answer the question, right? For I mean, Locus Array, right? I mean, what is like the right I guess environment fit, product fit type of kind of customer at this time?
So the core market is fulfillment. So in terms of, SKU size, we're looking at kind of each's, case level. Like, that's what Array is built to handle with the robotic arm it's on board the robot. And we're really targeting, within fulfillment, 3PLs, retailers, e-commerce, grocery, healthcare, industrial. It's a lot of different industries. But if you have any sort of, small each picking process, that's going to be, highly interesting to automate with Array. And if you have SKUs that, we can't pick with Array, maybe it's bulky SKUs or SKUs that, are heavier, we can also handle that with the Locus Origin and Locus Vector solution. So we're really selling Array as an integrated solution. So depending on, your dynamics of your operations, you can use, Origins for, those SKUs, and then you can use Array for these SKUs, and you can kind of mix and match depending on the needs of your operation.
Got it. Very interesting. And so from the ARM perspective, right? Because I know that one of the challenges around piece picking with a robotic arm for a long time was like the ability to grasp, right? And whether it's from an actual kind of grasper or a gripper of some sort. So are there any limitations on like type of product that it can't grasp or pick up? I mean, can it handle like poly bags and small items, or what's the kind of the mix or the spectrum there?
Yeah, so it's designed to handle, typical, products that are packaged, poly bags to box products,
Okay.
individual kind of smaller items that have, curved surfaces. So we're really designing it to handle as much as, cover as much of the SKU profiles as possible. For SKUs that aren't pickable, you can then cover that with Locus Origin. So how we're going to ensure, high accuracy, high coverage with Locus Array is that we will have full control together with the customer on which SKUs actually get fed into Array versus maybe Locus Origin. So,
Okay.
the difference, if you stick an arm on next to an ASRS, you don't really have a lot of control over what that arm has to pick. So that's where you get, a lot of congestion or, hospital areas that are crowded because that arm has to pick whatever it's being presented from the ASRS. Whereas with our solution, we're able to make sure already that it's only going to handle the SKUs that we know the system is built to handle today. And then over time, as we do, pick after pick, you mentioned 6 billion picks. We hope to do 6 billion picks of Array. Each of those picks
Sure.
are going to get fed back into our AI, and we're going to be able to cover more and more SKUs as our perception and the manipulation improves over time. So that's kind of, I would say, where we are with SKU coverage improving, but we have a lot of control over what we can pick and can't pick, and whatever we can't pick, we can then hand over to Locus Origin or Locus Vector.
Interesting. So I'm curious, like, how would that, I guess, flow in a sense, right? Like, is it that you're identifying these items ahead of time through a certain process, or is it that like the array goes along and then it has trouble picking something, there's an exception, and then it sends a signal to like do it from a collaborative perspective instead of a fully automated? How does that work?
Yeah, it'll be a bit of both. So, before we would go live, we already have kind of a sense of what the SKUs look like. Most of the SKUs polybagged, or most of the SKUs in boxed, or do you have huge breadth of SKUs, and we'll have to do our best to put the right SKUs into the array section, and then over time we can learn which SKUs can be put into array and which SKUs need to fall out of array and be picked with Locus Origin and Vector. But the great thing is that there's that flexibility so that you don't have to get it 100% right before you go live, but there's a lot of flexibility to move things around afterwards as well.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense, and really interesting to hear about this new bot and the technology and the approach you're taking to kind of bringing this into and getting to a more automated state for warehouse operators out there. And so this has been deployed, as we mentioned earlier, at DHL, the first deployment out there. I think maybe there's some other ones that are secretive. I'm sure, but how is this rollout going? I mean, is this like available now for other people to engage with and start to bring into their operations, or is this rolling out further in 2026? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we have a couple of customer projects lined up. DHL is the one that's public right now.
Sure.
But we're going to spend most of next year working with these kind of tier one customers to make sure those deployments go really, really well, iterate the system a little bit, build in some of the additional functionalities so that we're aiming to broaden the availability towards late 2026, and then aiming for, widespread and global availability in kind of 2027 onwards.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And will this be under the same kind of RAS model as the Origin?
Yeah, we want to provide the flexibility. So if there's a part of it that the customer wants to CapEx, obviously we don't want to RAS the, racks and totes and stuff like that, but we do want to offer that flexibility. So, RAS is definitely something that we want to provide to customers with Array, so that very similar to Origin and Vector, that they can, scale up, scale down as their business changes. And there's no lights out solution, no fully automated solution on the market today that will have that level of flexibility as well.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but also the business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's fantastic to maintain that model too as well, because I think going back to what we talked about earlier, that flexibility becomes such a key component, right, for people to be able to embrace and adopt this and work with it to make it viable for their business. So very interesting to learn about this from you here today, Gina. And I'm curious to ask you this question, because you've seen a lot of different sides of the business and the industry, and I'm sure through, aside from what you've seen at Locus, through your work on the innovation side of DHL, I'm sure you had a ton of exposure to what is possible out there in this space. So I'm curious, as we maybe I guess tying on to the discussion around long-term lights out dark idea of warehouse, right? As you look to kind of the future, maybe 5-10 years from now, how do you view what would be like an entry-level role for someone from a human perspective in the warehouse, right? We would say, in current state, probably like a material handler, maybe a picker, something like that. But as we get more automation, expansion, and things of that, like, what do you think the average warehouse worker, what does their role now become or evolve to?
Man, you've been coming up with really great questions.
That's my job.
We see it now with our array deployment, right?
Sure.
You don't need anybody doing the picking. It's a fully automated system. So I think, for those sites, a lot of the roles that exist today will fall away. And what you're going to have for an entry-level person is someone that maybe is the robot fleet manager. So they're keeping an eye on the system, making sure that it's running. If the robot runs into any issues, maybe that person is taking care of the hospital and kind of troubleshooting or helping the robot complete that pick or complete the order. I think you'll have roles for people to maintain the robots. So as the fleets, as robots cover more and more workflows in the warehouse, you're going to need, people to help maintain those systems as well. So I think you're going to see those kinds of role in the warehouse in the future, become more prominent. So I think those are just some of the, roles that will become, more front and center as sites get automated.
Got it. Okay. Very interesting. And I think it would be extremely interesting to see how that evolution kind of continues and what that ends up being. And I think how, companies and just, I guess, society in general, like, react and work towards like upskilling and creating that educational opportunity to fill those roles. So very interesting to talk to you here today, Gina. And last question, maybe the most important question, right? We have the Origin stress reliever, right? We have the Vector stress relievers that you guys give out at the various trade shows, but will we see a Locus Array stress reliever at Modex in 2026?
That's the hardest hitting question of this whole podcast. I'm going to have to check with our marketing team, but I just realized you have the Origin squishy right behind you. So,
sure, yeah, I got a squishy. I got a little 3D printed one up there too, I think. So yeah, I got a lot of these squishies floating around.
Yeah, let me take that back to our marketing team and see what they can do.
Yes, we count on Locus for some great swag at these trade shows. So looking forward to that for sure. So really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing some of your insights and your knowledge from your experience in the field, and also sharing with us about the new Locus Array and what it's all about and what the future a little bit of Locus looks like. So if people are interested in learning more about Locus or the Array specifically, or getting in touch with you to talk more, what's the best way to do that?
So if you're planning to come to Modex, we're going to have Array demonstrated live. It's not going to be fenced off, or not fenced off, but it's not going to be closed off this time and secretive like it was at ProMax. So it's going to be open for everyone to see. So come by, talk to us, see Array in action. And if you're interested to learn more before Modex, reach out to me on LinkedIn or to the team at Locus on the website. we can share more about, how we're thinking about Array and how it can bring value to your operations.
Absolutely. And we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. And I will say definitely connect with Gina on LinkedIn. She's a great follow, and she has some great posts out there that are very insightful too. So thank you once again for your time on the show today, Gina.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.